Contemporary Black Voices, where here we tell our stories our way. And my name is Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell, and I am one of 4 panelists on today's show. Sitting with me are Caleb Alexander, Chris Dawkins, and we have a special guest, Frell Clark, who is a community and civil rights activist. Now, today's topic I find interesting because it's really because of your comments I decided to do this show. A few weeks back, we did a show where one of the comments really was an attack saying that older Blacks act like victims. And that kind of got my attention to where I started doing some research, and there is this a research study was done back in 2016 on what was called victim mentality. So I talked to my friend here, Frell, and said, Frell, because he's either a borderline millennial Gen Xer, because he's 37, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I thought that we need to get somebody in his age group, because he is 37, to try to talk about this topic of the ideal of the ideal that baby boomers plus have a victim mentality. So before we get started, we would like for you to hit the like and subscribe button so that you can know when we are coming up on coming on. So Farrell, you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Now I'm gonna let you know that these two right here will probably hit you with some harder questions. Okay, so let me put my glasses on. That's part of being a baby boomer. So again, Black baby boomers plus are being accused of having a victim mentality. And I'm going to say, why is that? With a second question, do older and younger generations in the Black community view racial progress differently? And if so, what accounts for that difference in perspective? So first of all, why is this talk of a victim mentality?
So I think the questions actually kind of go together, because I think the difference in the divide in how the younger generation sees our struggle versus our senior generation, I think is that the people who went through the struggle, which would be our elders, they remember the struggle under the lens of the victories and the legal fights. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, etc. While the younger generation looks through the lens of the police brutality, the systematic oppressions that we still see. But the difference is they don't understand or see the progress made because we're still living through it. So they don't see the same victim mentality as in work through the system, try to appease the system. They see it as, wait a minute, we've tried that. That's the victim way. We're not going to go that way. We're going to take back. We're going to fight for what's ours. And so I think that they see the other approach, the political approach, to be a little softer than, let's say, a Malcolm X type of approach.
So this generation probably would have approved of Malcolm X more so?
Definitely.
Okay. You guys, you have a question? Well, let's continue.
Well, I would ask, when you look at, we just came out of yesterday I guess a boycott. And we found out that there were a lot of people around the country that were doing this boycott. However, when you talk to various Black people about the boycott, some say, well, we should have did it for a week, or we shouldn't have done it this way. We should have done it that way. I've got 2 questions. The first question is, where are the young people to be able to initiate these type of things, the boycotts and the different things like that? Because the majority of the people that I see are the older people. But then when the older people do it, we get the feedback like Sharon is talking about, where they say the younger folks, our audience, is saying, well, you're too old, you shouldn't be doing it. Okay, so we step back and there's no younger folks to fill the void. And then the second question is that when the boycotts that we had back in the 60s, Black folks didn't have jobs. They weren't working at these companies like a Target or whatever like that. Nowadays, if you have a boycott, not only do you hurt the company, you hurt the workers, who some are black, and you also hurt some of the businesses who are trying to do business with these major companies because you're not going into the store and buying those. I know that's a lot, but how do we deal with those things?
I think that we have to. I think boycotting is a necessity, even when sometimes there may be casualties of war. Not coming to your store may hurt the black employee or may hurt the black supplier that's in that store. But the overall mission, the overall goal has to be the focus. And the focus is that if they're willing to roll back these progresses that we've fought so hard for and fought so many years for, if they can roll them back like that, then we have to rethink, why are we spending our dollars with these people that do not value us? So for me, I think there is sometimes unintended casualties, but that's all a part of the war that we find ourselves in as Black Americans.
Because we had that discussion a while back about Target, and some of the black vendors were saying, can you hold off, can you not boycott Target and just buy what's in the store, or go ahead and boycott Target and I'm just, what you say, a casualty of war. So it was kind of, when I was looking at who the vendors were and where they were on that generational spectrum, I can understand why some of them said what they said.
Well, I would have asked them, hey, go out and buy my products. Don't buy anything else from Target, but buy my products off the shelf. But I do understand them, because as being a vendor, you fought hard, you got in there, and now your livelihood is in question. But to the consumer, shopping with them is still supporting them. And the reality is the vendors are only in there in the first place because of the DEI movement. Many of these vendors weren't in these places before DEI. So the fact that you're in there now is kind of a tribute to the work that's been done in the civil rights and the activism community that got you in those stores. Now that we're seeing that rolled back and they're no longer, adhering to their DEI standards, I mean, should we still elevate that store to the same platform? No. To me, it has to be, they have to understand the same way they did in 2020 when a lot of these standards started being rolled out. They understood, wait a minute, as a collective, they've come together. They're starting to talk about their spending power. They're starting to organize and mobilize. We have to do something. And immediately all these practices came out. Immediately you started seeing representation in some of these companies. You started seeing commercials come out with black families. You started seeing all this progress, executives being brought up. I just read an article the other day that said from 2020 to 2024, 27% more black executives were hired. That was not by accident. That was because of these DEI standards.
So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this conversation, take a quick break, and pick up where we left off.